Okay, Nick and Andy, it's MLS Cup playoff time. Obviously, all eyes are on Lionel Messi and Inter Miami. They won the Supporters Shield, record points tally. He just, at the end of the season, turned up and started scoring hat tricks and all the rest of it. Once he'd had a bit of a rest. Nick, he's rested. Is he ready for the chaos that MLS playoffs bring around? Because it seems like he and Inter Miami are just taking everything in their stride. Suarez, Busquets, all the rest of them, and they're just going to sweep everybody by the wayside. Is that how this is going to play out this season in the playoffs?
It's MLS and it's going to get cold, so probably not. But they did a really good job of ensuring they don't have to be in the cold. They're going to get a best out of 3 with Atlanta, and everything else is going to go through Miami more or less. So they are certainly the favorites. I think, like in anything, guys, I hate picking a one-off and saying, oh, they'll definitely win it all, because anything can happen over 90 minutes. But if you're telling me in any scenario that are they not going to reach the final, sure, it can happen, but I wouldn't bet against them. I just wouldn't.
Andy, same, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's not just because it's Messi. It's not just because it's Messi's friends as well on the team. Like, this is a very good Miami team, kind of up and down the squad. They landed 3 players on MLS's 22 under 22 list. They had number 1 Diego Gomez. They had number 5 Federico Redondo, and they had number 6 a young American, Ben Kramaski. So, like, aside, 5 years, 10 years from now, those are the players that I want to really hear from about Messi's time in Miami and MLS, because I feel like they will have, learned and grown and gained the most from just that exposure to someone like him. But yeah, and so you mentioned it, Joe, all of the records that they set, everything that Messi did this season. This is exactly what MLS signed up for last summer when they brought him into the league, and they went all in on this period of time. But then you need it to be a success because of how much they put it out there, how much they promoted it, how many eyes it brought into, it brought onto the league for a period of time while Messi was playing. They didn't make the playoffs last year, and so that was kind of a bit of a disaster situation for MLS. And now, though, like it feels like, and I'm sure we'll get to a prediction at the end, but it feels like, it's a destiny moment, because how is Messi gonna let his team not win in the MLS playoffs? I have a hard time believing that he's not going to do something in any moment, no matter how many times it comes up in the playoffs, to just make sure his team wins. That's what he does.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? Like when you in England when I was growing up in the playground or whatever, when somebody brought the football in, and that they decided when the game was done. Basically, when they scored the last goal, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going home now. This is my ball. I'm taking it. I run the show here." Who will run the show aside from Inter Miami, Nick? I mean, who are the actual main contenders here? Because in the Eastern Conference, you look at that table, I think Columbus, Cincinnati, those teams are well-drilled teams and maybe teams that Inter Miami will struggle against at the very end of that conference series in the playoffs. But then big picture, I guess LAFC, LA Galaxy, have been very consistent this season. So those are teams that are going to push Miami all the way. But it really kind of just does feel like who's scrapping for second place right now. And I'm not being disrespectful to any teams, but there is quite a big gap, isn't there?
Well, if someone's going to take them out of the East, I like the Ohio teams, both of them, Columbus and Cincinnati. But I look at the LA Galaxy, perhaps is best built to do it. Riqui Puig has been fantastic. You've got the sort of next Messi underlying plot point there that he was supposed to be back in the day. And I'm not sure how to say the name, but Gabriel Pesch has been very, very good for them as well. I would put it down to those 3 teams, but I've watched MLS long enough to know that literally it could be the 8 or 9 seeds coming out and winning the whole thing. Remember the Rapids a few years ago, and that was fun. So maybe we embrace chaos.
Andy, what about you, mate? What do you think? Who are the biggest contenders?
Nick, you say a few years ago. That was 2010, by the way.
A few.
So that just to date us all, that's it feels like it was a few years ago. But yeah, but to your point, the playoffs have always been the most MLS of things, whether it's the results that you get on the field, whether it's how games play out, or whether it's kind of the structure and the fact that it's ever changing and evolving. I kind of wish we would, rather than the first round having these best of 3 series, I kind of really wish they were in the the conference finals, the semifinals of the entire thing, so we could see the likes of a Miami and a Columbus come up against each other, not just once, but to really figure each other out over the course of 2 and 3 games, playing each other head to head. Because I do think Columbus, more so than anybody else in the league, not just has the talent to compete with Miami, but I think they've got probably the best, most astute tactical coach that's maybe ever been in MLS with Wilfred Nancy, and it's a little bit of a miracle that he's even still in the league and hasn't been picked up by a pretty big club over in Europe at this point, I think. And so I look at them as having the highest potential, but at the end of the day, they don't have that guy Messi, and I think that that's going to be above everything else, probably the deciding factor.
Yeah, and Suarez and all the others, and just
Sure.
yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Nick, something else into Miami, not quite playoff focused, but they were announced last week as the representatives for CONCACAF in the US in the 2025 Club World Cup, along with the Seattle Sounders for Major League Soccer, because they won the Supporters Shield this year. I mean, it was kind of just a new thing. They decided that's what they were going to go with. We all kind of knew once it was sealed that that's what FIFA and MLS were kind of going to decide. But was that fair, do you think? Or should this spot have gone to the MLS Cup winners from this season? Because that is always touted as the big overall trophy, the main MLS champion. But it seemed, call me a skeptic, but convenient that Messi and Inter Miami won the Supporters Shield and they chose them.
It had to be that way. I'm not going to tell you that it's totally fair, but I mean, to be honest with you, the more that I've gotten into European soccer, except for the NHL, I don't understand why we celebrate a playoff winner as much as someone who was dominant for an entire year. And especially when you look at the way that Miami did it. I know this isn't, but without Messi for as long as they were, and without Suarez as well for a period of time. So is it fair? I don't know. I mean, MLS needs this and FIFA needs this to work. I'm very excited to see these clubs playing in a meaningful competition. I plan on going to it. I've been pushing Joe to have us all go together. I'm not going to lie. I'm just putting that out there into the world. But at the same time, was this happening without Lionel Messi? Were you leaving any variable out there without him? It wasn't. FIFA needs this to work.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I'm just going to say, I love the fact that the regular season champion is being rewarded. And I think MLS is getting to a stage where maybe the playoffs aren't a thing in the next few seasons. There's some reports out there from The Athletic that they may go to the, August to May schedule, like most of the rest of the world. And that will be interesting in some cities for sure. And there'll be a lot of flexibility with the schedule, winter weather-wise. We all know that. But it's doable, and that maybe feels like the next big step for MLS to, push the boundaries and to really align themselves, both from a transfer policy, respect policy, everything else, right, Andy? I mean, I feel like we've all been quite hopeful this would happen for a while, and if that does happen on the back of Messi being there, off the back of a World Cup in Canada, USA, and Mexico, seems like the right time for it to happen as well.
Yeah, the transfer aspect, I think, is probably the biggest one, because you line up when players are looking to leave their clubs at the European clubs and then maybe come to MLS. To do that mid-season is obviously less beneficial for the club that's signing them in MLS. It makes life tougher on the player coming in mid-season, so I think that helps a lot there. But one just final little point here: there does need to be change in MLS going forward, from the structure and how they do things and how they prioritize and what's important to the league. And I do think that needs to be brought about by this period of more attention and eyes on the league, brought about by Messi. Of course, if you bring Messi to the league and all you get out of it is what Messi does on the field, Messi wins an MLS Cup, you've got those photos and videos forever, congratulations. But if you don't take the league forward from that, and I don't know, does it need an evolution or a revolution? That's a conversation for another day. But if you don't do that, then you failed with the entire investment and the experience that was Messi and MLS.
Yeah, and Andy, don't forget, I know MLS feels a lot more like really undefeatable at this time, like that it's built its infrastructure, and it has, but the Cosmos had Pele in the 70s. It can become just pictures, and you've got to learn. You've got to be able to act.
Yeah, it's all about the structure, right, of all of these teams and building the youth programs and making sure it is something that, you know, the best players in the world in 10, 15 years' time want to be in MLS for their peak of their careers. And I think that is, again, part of that is aligning yourself with the rest of the world and being able to do deals and be in that conversation rather than a kind of separate entity that works totally different than the rest of the world. But let's see if Messi and Inter Miami are totally different than everybody else in the MLS playoffs coming up, because right now they look like the heavy favorites. But we'll keep you updated over on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest from the playoffs. It's in full flow. It's going to be very, very interesting. Let's see if Messi and Co can get it done and add a MLS Cup playoff trophy to their supporters' shield. Nick, Andy, and I, we all agree that they are the red-hot favorites, right? So let's see if anybody can knock Messi off of top spot.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And if you want even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.